and Sunday. You know, there are those of you who could understand what that means, and others who like, well, I don't know what that means. So let's take a few moments to remind you that you are part of a larger association of congregations called Transformation Ministries. What I love to remind and say to our Transformation Ministries congregations, and I love this part of it, is that you, as a congregation, you thought about it, you prayed about it, and you voted to be a part of this association. And that's a hugely important factor and dynamic, and that means that you're part of a larger kingdom impact ministry on purpose. And so it's hugely important and valuable that every part of an association really operates as part of that association. In Transformation Ministries, our commitment is very simple. The way we talk about it is this. We are committed to see that there are more healthy churches, period. The Church Universal, the Church of Jesus Christ, is the primary means by which and through which God has decided that the gospel will be given to the world. Plan A. There is no plan B. So if the church is not healthy and effective, then the gospel will not be heard in the world today. And so that's what our association is all about. We focus on training, equipping, and networking pastoral leaders, churches, for training in health and missional vitality, we call it, but basically just talk about it this way, being very effective in the context where God's placed you. And number three, that there are more healthy churches by starting new churches, so new church planting. That's what we do. And so it's my privilege almost on a weekly basis to be in one of our Transformation Ministry congregations throughout California, Arizona, Nevada, a couple in Hawaii. I have a vision for more church planting in Hawaii, so I can serve. I want to serve you there, my friends. Serve you there. Nevada, somebody else. Looking for somebody else. But and also some of our new church plants, all the way as far out as Indianapolis and Idaho and the state of Washington. So what that means is it's our belief that whoever we can help be more effective for the kingdom of God as an association, we want to do that. It's I don't always have the privilege and joy of having my family, or part of my family here. Joy, my wife, is here, so Joy. And our favorite child is with us. He is also here today, Lydia, my youngest daughter. And you know, some of you know this, that your pastor and wife and we kind of have a seminary connection way back in another day and time, actually in the last century. We were all in seminary together up in Berkeley, and so I know that pastor is up in Berkeley to see Ohio State thoroughly trounce Cal yesterday, yes. And so we have this interesting and wonderful connection over the years of ministry, so I'm glad to be able to be here. Hey, you know, one of the things that like I said, I have the privilege of being in our congregations, hopefully to inform and connect, as well as just simply bring God's word, whatever it is for today. But so quickly, and this doesn't count on my preaching time, right? I'm looking at whatever deacon seems like he's in charge. Okay, yeah, he's shaking his head. I'm looking at you. So I'm looking at the guy who said we don't watch clocks around here. You are my friend. Yeah, the people were like, no, please. No, they said, look, when the people fall asleep, just say amen and walk out. That's kind of what he said. But just this morning, very quickly, it is an opportunity for me to be here and just encourage you to really be thoroughly informed about the association that you're a part of. And it is hugely important. So I brought just a few things. They're out in the narthex lobby by the front door. So you can pick whichever one you understand what I just said. One is an annual report. It's dated, but it's for last year. The new one's about to come out. One is something I do every month called Willie's Top 5. At the beginning of each month, we just send this out via email or whatever. It's just 5 things that I'm personally excited about or that might help you understand what's going on in the association. And then there's a little card, and I was so pleased to see that you were publicizing and encouraging participation in our annual Transforming Churches Conference. That's the one time each year when we all get together. It's in Downey this year, and so there's a little flyer here for that. The other thing I would just encourage you is that there is a website. All this stuff also exists in digital format, and I would love nothing more than to invite you. Am I going to violate anybody's sensitivities if I walk off the platform? Okay. Because I realize I'm not wearing a tie, so some of you are already against me. So, or if I wore a tie, you'd be against me. So, just in case someone just knows it's. I'm saying something really important. Whatever it was. Just yeah, thank you. See, the new youth pastor is on the job right here. Hey, we would love nothing more than if you did just get connected. We're not allowed to use words like mailing list because that's threatening to people. But you can go to our website and just say, I want to stay connected. So when we send out information, we do a digital newsletter and so on, then you can just get it in your email, and so I would encourage you to do that. Okay, so that's a lot of talking to get into God's Word today, but thank you for the privilege. And let me just say one more time, thank you for being a participating congregation. You may not know this, but I do, that this church has historically and continues to be a faithful participant in the association. Not just by participating, but by your financial mission giving, your TN mission giving. You have been and you are faithful. And I was just saying to my family driving down here, on a per capita basis, you're one of our leadership congregations. And that means that you take seriously the fact that because you participate, you know that you can't do all the ministry, but you contribute so that the ministry can be done in faraway places. That's important. That's what kingdom is all about. So thank you for being a part of that. This morning, I just kind of an overarching thought and reality statement of truth, I think, is that the fact is, at one level or another, everyone wants to be known. Think about that. Everybody wants to be recognized. Everybody wants to feel like, gosh, someone knows me and cares about me, someone remembers my name. True? It's just kind of that whole thing. Everybody wants to be known. It'd be my argument, and I would be correct, because it's thoroughly biblical, that God hardwired us that way. We are created by God, and there's something within how God has created us, that desire to be connected. First connected to God, and then connected to others in relationship. We're by creation, we're relational. And so there's something in us that is yearning to be known and to be reassured that we're valuable and that we're important. It's how God hardwired us. Now, I'm going to date myself a little bit here, but several years ago there was a very popular sitcom, and beside the fact that the whole show took place in a bar, there was a very catchy theme song, and it said, "You want to be where everybody knows your name," right? And that's the name of that show was Cheers. Cheers. People, how come you know this? Huh? You want to be where everybody knows your name. And you know, the reason that, besides being a little catchy tune, the reason that spoke to us is that it spoke to truth. And that whole show, I'm not a big fan of the whole bar scene and all that, but it really wasn't about a bar, was it? It was about being known and accepted and valued and people on a journey together. So the reason that rings a bell for us is that it strikes a part of how we're created by God. That we want to know that we're valuable. We want to know that someone knows us and pays attention and has a plan for us. In a much more horrible way, another illustration of this would be a movie that came out, very difficult to watch, but we all should watch it at least once, and it was a movie called Schindler's List. You familiar with Schindler's List? Based on a true story that happened in World War II during the Holocaust, when the Germans decided to completely extinguish an entire ethnic group of people, the Jews. They also killed a lot of other people, including a lot of Christians who weren't Jews and so on, but primarily it was directed towards them. So in the movie Schindler's List, if you recall, the whole movie was shot in black and white. Remember this? It was a brilliant move by the director, because the whole black and white was just like gray and down and horrible. I mean, there's just nothing exciting. It's just like, from a creative perspective, it gave us the right sense of darkness. But there was one short segment in there where there was a little girl in a red coat. You remember the scene? And there were several scenes, and all of a sudden, in this black and white, gray, the little girl in the red coat sticks out. What was the point there? Well, we noticed her. And the point that the director was making is, these people are not non-persons. Every single person is important. And that little girl in the red coat stood out. And so the point is, because every Holocaust, and unfortunately in human history there have been several, every single one has as its goal and impetus devaluing people. And so in a very powerful visual way, we're reminded that little girl is important. Every single person is important. You matter. I matter. Someone is paying attention. If you have your Bibles this morning, I would invite you to turn to the Gospel of John chapter 1. The Gospel of John chapter 1. It's a wonderful passage where it's the beginning of Jesus' ministry. And I would encourage you at some point, if you think about reading the Gospel of John from this perspective. Read the Gospel of John sometime and pay attention to all the conversations that Jesus has with different people. You know, God, the Holy Spirit, inspired 4 different versions of the story of the Gospel of the life of Jesus. And they're all the same, and they're all true, and they're all authoritative, but each with a kind of different perspective and a different expanding of the truth. And in the Gospel of John, particularly effective at bringing out and highlighting these interesting conversations that Jesus had with people all throughout. Just think about that sometime as you read. But we're looking at John chapter 1. And I'll pick this up. I'll read if you have your Bible, follow along. Or your iPhone, if your Bible app is open, find it, and so on and so on. I say that because I finally have one and know how to use it. The only reason I have one and know how to use it, and I have a Facebook and know how to use it, is teenager in the house. So whenever I can, I whip open my iPhone. Now, when they say open your Bibles, I go, whip open my iPhone. I still think this is the more holy way to do it, but that's just not true. Not true. Okay, John chapter 1, beginning with verse 35. The next day, John, this is John the Baptist, was there again with 2 of his disciples. When he saw Jesus passing by, he said, "Look, the Lamb of God." And when the 2 disciples heard him say this, they followed Jesus. And turning around, Jesus saw them following and asked, "What do you want?" And they said, "Rabbi," which means teacher, "where are you staying?" "Come," he replied, "and you will see." And so they went and saw where he was staying and spent that day with him, and it was about the 10th hour. Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, was one of the 2 who heard what John said and who followed Jesus. The first thing Andrew did was to find his brother Simon and tell him, "We have found the Messiah," that is Christ. And he brought him to Jesus. Jesus looked at him and said, "You are Simon, son of John. You will be called Cephas," which when translated is Peter. And the next day Jesus decided to leave for the Galilee, and finding Philip, he said, "Hey, Philip, follow me." And Philip, like Andrew and Peter, was from the town of Bethsaida. Philip found Nathanael and told him, "We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law, and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." "Nazareth? Can anything good come from there?" Nathanael asked. "Come and see," said Philip. And when Jesus saw Nathanael approaching, he said, "Here is a true Israelite, in whom there is nothing false." "How do you know me?" Nathanael asked. And Jesus answered, "I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you." And then Nathanael declared, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." And Jesus said, "You believe because I told you I saw you under the fig tree? You shall see greater things than that." And then he added, "I tell you the truth. You shall see heaven open, and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man." May God bless the reading, hearing, most importantly the doing of His Word. So here we have this beginning, this part of this narrative at the beginning of Jesus' public ministry. And at the very beginning, of course, John the Baptist was out, and he was just out there taking care of business. I mean, he was preaching, and he's one of those guys that just got away with telling people they were just sorry sinners going to hell types. And we were like, "Oh." And so, I mean, he just didn't mince words. I mean, and he just told them the truth. You got to repent. You got to get your life together. God used him mightily. But he wasn't the Messiah. People were always saying, "Are you the one? Are you the one?" And John the Baptist was very clear. "No, I'm not the one." He's coming after me. And so he got people's attention and got them focused, but he was very clear it wasn't about him. Ultimately, it wasn't about John the Baptist. So that's the background. So here we have John having said to his own disciples and followers, it isn't me. You're following me, but ultimately it is someone else. And so when he sees Jesus, having told them there was someone else, when he sees Jesus, he said, that's the one I've been talking about. All right? So a couple of them, they leave and they start following Jesus. Now, I realize that, I oftentimes create the Willie version of the narrative. It's not exactly printed this way, but it's kind of how I see it in my mind's eye. Because here's John, he's his disciples, he said, there's Jesus, you should follow him. And so, we've got a couple of them, Andrew and Philip, and so their teacher says you should follow that guy. Well, they don't really know that much about Jesus, a little bit. So in my mind's eye, this is the way I see it going. They're going, Andrew's saying to Philip, they're just kind of following along like this, how it is. They don't exactly know how to talk, we're supposed to say hi, so they're going, say hi to him. I'm going to say hi to him. You say hi to him. I'm going to say hi. So it didn't say that was what was happening, but I like that. If I was ever making a movie, I'd put it in there like that. But here's the point. The point is this. They're kind of tentatively following along, and Jesus knows exactly what's going on, so what does he do? He says, hey, what are you guys looking for? What do you want? And here's the best they could come up with. Where are you staying? That's it. I mean, John said this is the Messiah, and that's the best you can come up with. Think about it. Didn't you like my version? It's pretty funny. Come on, you like it. Come on. But here's the thing. This is what I love about this. It's so real. And Jesus knows that they don't really understand yet. He knows that John told them to follow him. He knows they don't really understand who he is. But at least they're sort of walking towards him. He knows that they'd like to know. So what does he do? He initiates. He says, hey, what is it you're looking for after all? What are you looking for? And so Jesus initiates with them. They're doing the best they can by breaking away from the security of where they've been to just like, okay, so maybe this Jesus I'm supposed to follow, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. The good news is Jesus understands that. And Jesus initiates, and then he says, what are you looking for? And then he goes one step further. He says, and they say, well, where are you staying? So, okay, all joking aside, they are asking him, where are you staying? Because we'd like to spend some time with you. That's really what's going on as well. It's still a little late, but still, it's what they were doing. And so Jesus understands that they're searching, and so what does he say? He initiates, and then he invites them to come and see for themselves. He doesn't ask them, well, what do you know about the Messiah anyway? By the way, could you give me the top 5 scriptures that prophesy about the Messiah? Could you tell me those? He doesn't give them a test. He doesn't give them a pop quiz. He doesn't say, well, I don't know about you or you or you. He doesn't ask them, do they have all the qualifications to follow? He just says, just come and see for yourself. It's awesome the way that Jesus does this. He knows that they're searching. He knows that they're not really clear. He knows, and he's modeling for us and for them, you don't need to know it all. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't even have to feel all that secure in what you're doing because Jesus is telling them it's going to be all right. Just come and see for yourself. It's a great model that Jesus provides for us. And so we see, the way I have it here is Jesus initiates and he invites. He sees an opportunity to initiate a conversation and he invites them to come and spend time with himself. Now the great thing about this, it's like a learning moment for the followers of Christ. And so kind of the way that I look at this text, it kind of is run on 2 tracks, okay? So let me just invite you to think about this on 2 tracks in terms of application. One is to follow the example of the master, and number 2 is listen to it as if the master is speaking to you personally. Does that make sense? I'm going to come back to that in a moment. So number 1, follow the example of the master. So as the text goes on, we see that first Andrew, he goes, he spends, it's about the 10th hour, so it's the evening, all night, he spends all night. The next day, the very first thing, the first thing he can think about is going to find somebody else who turns out to be Peter, Simon, and what does he say? Come and see for yourself. I don't know if you're a Bible circular person. Like in your Bible, I would encourage you to. But look at all the different places where it says, come and see, come and see. Jesus says it. Andrew says it. Philip says it. Come and see for yourself. And so first thing he does is he goes and he finds his brother and he says, we found Jesus, you come and see for yourself. So he brings someone. Then it goes on and it talks about, and we have this interaction that Jesus has with Peter. Then we see that Peter also mentions, or the scripture, mentions that Jesus is about to leave, so he invites Philip to follow. But before he goes, Philip thinks of someone that he knows, named Nathaniel, and he goes and he gets Nathaniel. Now, Nathaniel kind of pulls the nose thing on him. Like, really? Nazareth? Really? It's sort of like someone from Dana Point going, really? YorbaLinda? Really? Or someone from YorbaLinda going, yeah, really? Chino Hills? That's right. I live in Chino Hills. Paris. But Philip's not buying that. He's like, yeah, whatever. I'm just telling you, you need to come and see. He doesn't get all debatey about it. He just, I don't know everything. I just know that you need to come and see Jesus for yourself. So we have Andrew going for Peter, Philip going for Nathaniel, and John, who's never mentioned, but he's the guy who's writing it all down. He's the witness to all these things. And so the first track is, what a great example of the Master for his followers. A great example, a pattern for all of us who would say, we decided to follow Christ. And here's oftentimes the tripping points, or the reasons that we feel that we can't interact with people about Jesus and the gospel, are things like, well, I don't know all the answers yet. I mean, what if they ask me, what's the meaning of Leviticus 12:4? I have no clue what Leviticus 12:4 is. Okay, and look it up. Whatever. I mean, I'm sure there's a meaning, but so we're like, well, what if they ask me a question? What if they ask me to name all the books of the Old Testament in order? All right, it starts with Genesis and it ends with Malachi. Just remember those two, and you're in, okay? So we play this game with ourselves. I don't know all the answers. I don't know all the answers. I don't know all the answers. Here's an idea. If they ask you a question that you don't know the answer to, how about this? I don't know. What about that? What if you just say, I don't know? I don't know all the answers. In fact, here's the great news. You're not required to know all the answers in order to invite someone to come and see for themselves. Isn't that a great thing here? And so we're afraid that we don't know enough, but that's not the point, is it? These first us followers of Christ, they didn't yet understand. And if you read the Gospels, you know that they went ahead and spent a couple of solid years with Jesus, like 24 hours a day. And at the end, during the crucifixion, resurrection, a little 9 yards, 10.5 yards, they still weren't getting it. So, you're a pretty good company if you're willing to admit, I don't understand everything about Jesus, the Bible, and the gospel. And it's okay if you don't understand everything. But the model here is, I may not have all the answers, but I know the one who does. And I'm just saying, come and see for yourself. You see how freeing that could be for us? And how awesome that could be for us to stop thinking that we put this burden of that on ourselves that we have to have all the answers. I'm not saying we shouldn't be studying God's Word and learning more. Of course we should, of course. But to use that as an excuse to not invite someone to come and see for themselves who Jesus is just not following the example of the Master. And so, number one is to follow Jesus that way. The second some stumbling point is, I'm just not sure who to talk to. All right, now some people have the pure, straight-on, spiritual, biblical gift of evangelism. They're evangelists. And they're just able to walk up to total strangers and share the gospel. They're able to walk neighborhoods, knock on doors, and all that kind of stuff. And there may be a couple of you in here. But the fact is, the vast majority of Christians are not that way. Would you agree with that? I'm not that way. I mean, I'm just like, what if they don't like me? Well, the chances are they'll like you before they know you like me. Okay, so we excuse ourselves. But the model here is different. What did each of the first followers of Christ do? They went to someone they already knew. And the truth is, and I'm not sure if you talk very much about the oikos idea, oikos principle here in this church. I think you probably have. I'm looking at some of the leaders. But the truth is, oikos is just simply the Greek word for household or group of, we call them first and second level relationships. The fact is, every single person in this room already knows anywhere between 8 or 9 and 15 people. You already know them. They're in your family. They're in your neighborhood. They go to school with you. They work with you. You already know them. And so the model here is just go to the people that you already know. That's the oikos idea. And so if you think about it, that means that there are at least 8, 9, 10 people. You already know them. You have a little bit of relationship with them. So for you to honestly say to them, hey, look, I'm admitting I may not know everything, but this Jesus is someone you need to come and see about for yourself. See, so we have this great model of the Master for his followers to be people who, like the Master, initiate and invite. You already know these people. Now, if you're one of those people that's gifted, God bless you. I mean, we need people that are just going to go out and blaze new territory and so on. But for the rest of us who don't have that specific spiritual gift, then we can follow the example that the Master sets for his disciples. Just simply ask the people that you know. All right? So that's kind of track one, that Jesus initiates and invites. So we can do the same thing. Now let's switch back over to make it very personal, because for each one of us also, Jesus also initiates and invites each one of us to come and see more for ourselves about himself. I mean, it's like a personal invitation that Jesus gives to each one of us as well. So let's see what happens after this. And particularly, I want to focus on what Jesus says to Nathanael. He says to Peter, hey, Peter, this is your name, and I'm changing your name to this. And there's a reason for that. Then he meets Nathanael, and when he sees Nathanael, he sees him coming, he says, hey, there's an Israelite, a fine, there's no fault in this guy. He's a fine, upstanding Israelite. I saw you while you were sitting under the fig tree. And so what he says to Nathanael is, I know who you are, and I saw you while you were sitting under the fig tree. Now, I don't know if you are like, I guess you would call this science fiction, fantasy type film genre, but a couple years ago, there was a movie out called Avatar. Did anybody see Avatar? Okay, big people with tails. Okay. There's a very important theme in Avatar. And the whole subtext of this deal is that there's a person who's a human that lives in an alternate universe. I know this sounds crazy, but it's really, you know what I'm saying. But the real issue is that both of the main characters, they're trying to figure out who they really are. Are they important? Do they have purpose? And do they fit in anywhere? Right? And so there's a phrase that says, I see you. In the movie, one character says it to another. And if you're paying attention, what you understand is, not I see you, like physically I see you, but I see you means I know you. I'm seeing beyond this, and I'm seeing into your life, what makes you tick, what you're thinking about, what your challenges are. More like seeing into your heart. And so, here's my point. When Jesus says to Nathanael, I saw you, what he's really saying to Nathanael is, I know you. I know you, Nathanael. I know all about you. And it kind of freaks Nathanael out a little bit because he says, I saw you sitting under the fig tree. So, now a couple things here, which I think we just have to look at. Number one, he must have been sitting under a fig tree when Philip came, because that's what the scripture says, right? There's no reason to make that stuff up. So he must have been sitting under his fig tree, and Philip comes, and so Jesus says, yeah, I saw you under the fig tree when Philip came. And Nathanael was like, whoa, you must be the Son of God. And Jesus is like, really? You're easy. Really? Because I said I saw you under the fig tree, like all of a sudden I'm the Son of God? Really? All right, but more is going on here. And maybe for us, it might not necessarily strike us, but in Jesus' day, and in the scriptures, in the nation, for Jews in the nation of Israel, the fig tree was a symbol of the nation of Israel. Some of you know this. And so the tradition was that in your garden, you would plant a fig tree. And if you wanted to go and have like your quiet time, your devotions, where you wanted to pray and read the Word, you would go into your garden and you would sit under the fig tree. And it was sort of like putting yourself in a place, physical place, to where what it meant was when you're there under the fig tree, it means that you're reading, you're praying, you're thinking big thoughts. And so when Jesus says to Nathanael, I saw you under the fig tree, number one, obviously he really was sitting under the fig tree, but there's more going on here. What he's saying to Nathanael is, I saw you when you were sitting under the fig tree. He's saying, Nathanael, I know what's going on with you. I know what makes you tick. I know what you're worried about. I know what you're afraid of. I know what your dreams are. I know what you yearn for. He's saying to him, I really know you. He's saying, I see you, Nathanael. And this speaks powerfully to both Nathanael and should to us, because what Jesus is saying in saying this to Nathanael and what the Scripture says to us, that God not just knows everything, think about it. God is sovereign and omniscient and omnipotent and omnipresent and all the other omnis you can think of. All the omnis, God's all that stuff. All right? And so, for some people, that's kind of a bad thing. Like, wow, God knows everything about me. And so I feel bad because God knows all the things that I am or that I'm not. That's not the way God would say it. Yes, God knows everything. But when God says, I see you, what God says, I know you, I know what's going on. I know what your dreams are. I know what your challenges are. I know what you're struggling with. I know what you would do if you could have your wildest dream come true. I know all these things. And so getting all the way back to what I said at the beginning, we are hardwired to yearn for someone to know what we're really about. And what the Scripture says, Jesus says to us, is I know what you're really about. And that's a good thing, not a bad thing. And so I know the things all about you. I saw you while you were under the fig tree. I saw you for your concerns, your desires, your fears, your victories, your failures, all of those things. And here's what he says. I know you, and here's my promise. This is what Jesus says. Here's my promise for you. And I have more for you. He says to Nathanael, he kind of says, wow, you're easily impressed. Because I said I saw you in the fig tree, you say I'm the Son of God. And he says, you know what I'm telling you? You're going to see a lot more than this. He says you're going to see heaven opened up, and angels ascending and descending. Those are all visual. Jesus is giving them visual cues of what is he saying? He's saying to Nathanael, you're going to see some amazing things. You're going to see God do some amazing things. There's a lot more. This angels ascending and descending from heaven is like an image of revelation, illumination. And Jesus is saying, I know you, and I have so much more that I want you to see, to be, and to do. It's a great statement of promise for the future. This idea that this side of glory, God is not done with us yet. That's an awesome thing, isn't it? I mean, until, at whatever time God decides our earthly journey is over and we walk into heaven and eternity, but until that time, God's perspective is, I still have more for you. There is no timeout. There is no retirement. There is no just picking your place in the pew and sitting there forever and doing nothing. Really? I hope you're not all sitting in the same places every week. But you understand what I'm saying? What a great promise that Jesus says. He says it to Nathanael. More importantly, he says it to each one of us, who would simply say, I may not know everything, but I figured this one thing out. I'm on the right track if I will get closer to Jesus. And then Jesus says, you're doing the right thing. There's so much more I have for you. And so Jesus initiates. This makes it very personal now, okay? Initiates, invites you to come and see for yourself what it's really like to follow. And then illuminates. In other words, Jesus is asking these questions. He's asking this question. What is it you are looking for? What is it? Whatever it is. Jesus is an open invitation. Then he says, come and see who I am. I know you. And you will see much more. Like I said, from a very personal point of view, a very personal perspective, I think this is a powerful and wonderful promise of God. That God still has more for us to do. And also for a church or a congregation. That as long as God sees fit to allow any local congregation to continue to exist, this is the way I look at it. then God has something more in mind for you. Although the Church of Jesus Christ, the Church Universal, cannot fail. That's what Jesus said, I will build my church and it can't fail. But the local congregation, part of that Church Universal, is not guaranteed that the local organization church will continue to exist. There's about 7 really good examples in Revelation chapter 2. So if the church, the local congregation still exists, then here's my attitude. God has something more. What a great promise. What a great motivation. What a great opportunity. One of the things I always try to get here early, wherever I'm preaching, I try to get there early and drive the neighborhood. Just to kind of get a feel, well, always look for Starbucks, but other than that. But to get a feel for, where has God placed you? Is there a school nearby? Are there homes? Are there apartments? Is it a new neighborhood? Is it an old neighborhood? Is it a commercial neighborhood? What is it? Because that's where God has placed you. And God continues to keep this church going so that you'll start in your own Jerusalem to be God's people for this place and this time. To be God's plan A. And God has more for you. So the word for you this morning, it may be a very personal word from Jesus today. A personal word that you need to hear. That Jesus says, I know you. I love you. You're ultimately precious and valuable in my sight. If that's what the Spirit's saying to you today, embrace that. Because God hardwired you to receive that message. That's the best news you can hear. Best news you can hear. Amen. Thank you. And maybe this morning, then maybe the word is, I kind of get all that stuff. I just have never been able to figure out how to invite other people to come and see, for themselves. Well, here's a really good example. Don't overthink it. Just go do it. All right? And then, for those of you who are part of this church, either historically or brand new, if you're here visiting or you're a guest today, I don't know who you are because I'm not a regular part, but you said there were many. So if you're here today for whatever reason, God has a plan and an idea. And so just invite and encourage you to think and consider that this might be a congregation where God intends to use you to accomplish His purposes in your life and in someone else's as well. Hey, let's close with prayer and worship team. Thank you, Lord, for this day. It's always a good and joyful opportunity to be with your people, and I thank you for that. And I thank you for the historic nature of this church from generation to generation, the faithfulness. I thank you, God, that you consider in your kingdom stewardship, you still consider that there is a mission and there is a purpose for this congregation, and I pray that you would continue to reveal that. Reveal that to their pastor. Reveal it to the leaders. I pray that you would be with and bless and guide and direct them as they expand their ministry through the addition of a new staff person. I pray, God, that this neighborhood and even the region here in Yorba in Orange County, God, that you would open doors to impact lives. And I pray, God, that at the most very important personal level this morning, that if there's even just one person in this room today who came in here just not even understanding at all that they are the most valuable creation of yours. That you love them, that Jesus came, lived, died, and lives again for every single person. I pray, God, that they would just open a window of invitation, even to just one person here today. Thank you for your word. Thank you that it's true, it's powerful. And when we open it, God, you speak to us. In Jesus' name.